bag G, step 1. Here we go. Well, all right, there it is, done. Did you catch it? Well, I forgot to do something. I didn't add the washers here like I did here, just going a little bit too fast. They're right there. I'll throw those on and then we'll move on to bag H. Okay, moving right along. Time for bag H. So bag H is going to have the nose brace tubes. The antenna tube and cap, the antenna mount. We're really down into the home stretch now. So by the time bag, we're going to do H and then I. And we'll stop and talk about bag I when the time comes because I got some cool stuff to show you. Let's get started. Well, there's a bit of a discrepancy in the manual, and I don't think it's the first time. So I just did bag H. And bag H was the antenna tubes, and not the antenna tubes, the brace tubes, right up front here. And bag H apparently was also the antenna mount. Well, this battery tray was included in bag H, but shows the installation in bag I. So I was a little confused there. I had to go looking for bag I because all of a sudden it was time to start to do the steering linkage and servo mount. So we're on to that now. So for, excuse me, a steering servo, we're going to go with the classic Futaba FP148. We're going to use a Futaba 2-channel receiver of the same era. And here's the thing I'm most excited about. I actually have an Associated branded stock motor to put into this car, and it's a Cadillac, meaning that it is now, forgive me, I am not an RC10 guru, but there's Cadillac and there's Ettinger. Those were two facilities or factories addresses for Team Associated back in the day. Like an A stamp, for example, I think is a Cadillac. So and then there's also Ettingers as well, but I don't know if those are A stamps. So I'm referring to a stamp that's on the very back of the chassis. They would stamp them A and then I think B. So anyway, this is an early Team Associated stock motor. That's the point. And it's going to go into this Shelf Queen. And it's in nice clean shape. And they were made by Yokomo back in the day as well. So really cool. Some of my vintage Losies, or at least one, has a vintage Team Losi labeled motor. Well, my Shelf Queen RC10 is going to have a Team Associated labeled motor. I don't remember where I got this. I had another one that came in another car. That's actually sitting in the Hornet and was being used. I'm going to pull that out of there and put something else in the Hornet when the time comes. All right, on to bag I. Okay, bag I. It's time to mount the servo and make the steering linkage. Well, there we have it. That concludes bag I. And now we will start bag J, which is the wheels. All that's left, yeah? The wheels and figure out the body. So I think we'll just keep that going right now. Well, there we have it. I was just doing some minor ride height adjustments because without a battery in there, the back end sits pretty high. I'm sure once the battery is in there, it'll come down where it needs to be. So right now it looks kind of weird. The back is higher than the front. So I lowered the front collars to try and get it to even out a little bit. I assembled the, what do we even call them, these floodlights? What do they call them? Oh, light bucket. Anyway, they go on the body if you're going to add that scale look, which I will. Just like I added the wheel knockoffs. Nothing you would ever run, but on the shelf it looks great. So there it is. Major construction is done. Next we'll wrap things up with a little bit of comparison and contrast. Well, all right. Crush and I would like to thank you for tagging along on this adventure of building a 40th anniversary 1984 RC10 Gold Pen, the car that really revolutionized and launched what we now know of today as RC racing. There was racing before the RC10, but it was never the same after the RC10. Everybody had to step up their game and really start to use engineering grade materials to construct their buggies. The fact that this car was made out of fiberglass, aluminum, steel, nylon reinforced plastics, it did a lot. And it launched the durability factor of RC cars up tenfold, which made racing a more viable hobby. You weren't breaking every time you went to the track because of the durability and the choice of materials used to build this car. All that while maintaining a scale look. So that was really cool. I'm glad that they did that. But I'm also not opposed to sacrificing scale look for performance, which when the 1984 JRX2 came out, clearly it didn't look like a scale buggy like the RC10 did, and that's okay. It was an enjoyable experience. It was very different. Still, I know there's 4 years between the 1984 RC10 and the 1988 JRX2, but in those 4 years, construction techniques in manuals, well, I mean, to be fair, I built this on the modern manual. I did try and build it using the original manual from 1984, which frankly, in a lot of ways, I preferred. There's a lot more detailed descriptions in writing, and photographs are of the actual parts, not illustrations. So in a lot of ways, I prefer the original manuals. Now, ironically, the JRX2 in 1998, that manual contained illustrations, not photographs. So, a lot of it's personal preference, I get that. I'm glad to have it. I'd like to have an original, but I'm not going to spring for an original Cadillac or Edinger. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but you know what I mean. So it'll still have a place in my collection. Frankly, I'm indifferent to it. I really am. Never had an original, never wanted an original, but I have respect for it because, as I said, it really launched RC racing into the future. Next, going to build the 1989 IFMAR Masami Edition RC10. That was for the Worlds in Australia in 1989. And this one I'm going to set up with modern servo, all the things. This is going to be our 100% runner. Yeah, it'll be in the collection, but it'll be used as a runner for those times that I go to the track and just want to play. Definitely will enjoy taking that out and testing it out. So, but that's the end of this RC10 build series. Now the RC10 graphite versus JRX2, that's going to continue. We'll probably do a comparison contrast of the two cars on the bench here, and then take them to the track and see how they perform. There's no point in comparing the 1984 RC10 to the 1988 JRX2 because they were not designed to compete against each other. Really, not this one. when this came out, the JRX2 didn't exist yet. So I'm going to compare my JRX2 to a 1989 RC10 graphite, which I think is the fairest comparison because they were so close in release date and design was a lot closer. I think comparing graphite to graphite instead of tub to graphite, I don't know. They continued to use this RC10 tub chassis. They even went back to it after the 89 and 91. And recently, people in vintage races, when they compare the tub chassis to the 89 and the 91 Worlds cars, a lot of them prefer the tub chassis still. So there's a lot right with this design, needless to say. So, but that's it for this one, folks. Thank you so much for tagging along. Crush, anything? No? Okay. All right. Well, until next time, everybody, thanks for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. And until the next one, bye for now.